RowCall219, and I have my black bag special. I'll roll some clips in this video along the way explaining what we're about to look at. So while on vacation in Madison, where I picked up my Makarov, we were driving back up north, and there's a shop on the outskirts of Indianapolis. It's in Westfield, Indiana. I've never been there, and I've been watching this guy's YouTube channel. His name is Chris. He's from Marksman TV, and over the course of the year or so, he's had some guns in there that, I was interested in, and I said if I ever got the chance, I'd like to go down there. I do visit other shops like Top Guns and Terre Haute, things of that nature, so it's not out of the realm to make it down to his shop. Well, I had the opportunity last week, and he's been having the same trouble as most places around my area have been having, and that's the supply of firearms and ammunition. And when I looked at his videos, I figured by the time I got there, it might not be as bad, but when I got there, it was as bad as I thought it was. It looked like my shop, almost a little worse than that. He did have quite a bit of stuff on his shelves pertaining to magazines and things of that nature, but the firearms and ammunition were limited. And when I say limited, his cases and walls were pretty much empty, sort of like my shop. I went back to work on Saturday, and the same it's the same song and dance, I should say, at work, where there's hardly any firearms, if any, coming in there, and absolutely ammunition is scarce. I haven't checked out the local since I've been back, so we'll have to go and scour around and see what we have at those places. But I stopped at his shop. His name's Chris. Again, he's from Marksman TV on YouTube. And I like to go and visit shops like this when I discover them on the internet. When you go down the rabbit holes of YouTube, you run into stuff like this. And this is one of the channels that I ran into, and I've been following it ever since, especially because it's in my hometown or home state of Indiana. And it's close from my town to get to his. It's not too bad of a drive. So I went there. I talked to him for a couple of brief moments. We didn't have a whole lot of time. The kids were getting antsy, and I've already drugged them to a couple of gun shops as is. So pretty much bought a firearm from him. Told him who I was. Gave him my card. I forgot stickers. I should have gave him a sticker or so. But gave him my card, told him I was on YouTube as well, just not really well known at this point, and he looked up my channel. I said goodbye to him. We had to get back on the road because we had another hour and a half, 2-hour drive back home. It was already getting pretty late, but I want to thank, first of all, Chris and his staff for filling me in on this little gem that I found, and taking the time to talk to me. I appreciate that. One of the gun shops that I visited, it wasn't quite the experience I wanted, but again, you're going to have those kinds of things going into these small shops. But I was treated really well there. I appreciate their time, and when I do go to these shops, I usually buy a gun, regardless of anything. I'll buy something to help, sling a couple of bucks their way. So let's get into the firearm, and here it is. So this was what was in the black bag. Now, this gun is pretty wild. Again, it's another surplus gun. It is in, I would say, rough condition, but with a little TLC, I could probably bring it back to looking a little bit better than what it does now. I just haven't had time. I've been working on the Makarov, but this is the next one to get cleaned up. This is the Beretta model 1951. Now, we've all seen those other surplus Berettas that have come through in the last year or so, but this one, from what I gathered from the information from the gentleman at Chris's shop, this was used in the Navy, in the Italian Navy, which pretty much opened the gateway to the modern day Berettas that you see today. It's a single action pistol. It's got a lock breech barrel, which when I take it apart and make that video, we'll show you that. Kind of the design of the Walther P38, you know, that kind of took that design. Now, don't get this mixed up with the Helwands, which is an Egyptian model that looks pretty much identical. The research that I've looked at, that gun is pretty much identical to this gun. So there's all kinds of variations of Berettas out there. You know, your Brigadiers, your 92S, your 92Fs. But this is the one that pretty much paved the way, I guess, from some of the information that I've seen all around the internet. These guns have came up before. I've looked at a couple of videos from a year or two ago, and they were readily available. But with all surplus, the things that happen with these guns is they dry up. That's why it took me so long to find a Bulgarian Makarov. Just trying to find these surplus guns now is hard. Trying to find any gun at this point is hard, especially the guns that you want. So I don't know a ton about this gun, but it is pretty funky, as we'll go over a little bit of the design of this gun. Right off the bat, it's an all metal or all steel gun. Which is going to help with the recoil. It is chambered in 9mm, and if you can look at the grip specifically, we'll get to this this little guy in a minute. But down here is not quite a heel release to get the mag out, but it's down there on the bottom. Most Berettas that you see nowadays are, you know, double stacked, things of that nature. This is only an 8-round capacity. You can carry 9 with one in the hole. So which makes it a little bit unusual, because a lot of the Berettas that you see nowadays are double stacked guns. This is not. This is a surplus gun. I don't know if I can get so much of the lettering on there. As you can see it, you can barely see that it's a model 1951 patent, but it is a Beretta. Let me turn it around here, give a look at it. It's this gun was of, I think he had about 8 or 9 in the case at that shop. And this is the best one. I didn't look at them all. I didn't want to waste these guys' times by constantly looking at guns and things of that nature. So I kind of did my due diligence. I could have stayed there for another, 30 minutes and saw all the firearms. But out of the 5 or 6 that I did see, this was the best looking one out of them all. Some of them had some pitting in the barrel, and I don't really want to deal with that much of work of restoring these old guns. So this one was the best choice for me. He still had a couple of these guns left. If you're interested, you'd have to go onto his website and find that information out. But it does have some serrations. They're not the greatest. This gun has been used, as we can pull it back. Oh, we gotta take this thing off. Let me get this. She's stiff. But there we go. So we got that going for it. This is the slide lock slide release. It has a cross bolt safety, which is really gnarly. You don't see cross bolt safeties as much nowadays, but I guess, probably back in the day before I was born, it was kind of the trend of the times. You do notice the cross bolt safeties on some guns. I notice the Mossberg MC1 has a cross bolt safety design on one of their models. So cross bolt safeties are here and there in modern day guns, but this one was a little funky, especially on a Beretta, because usually you see the safety decocker and things like that on the frame or on the slide, things of that nature, like the PT92s that Taurus makes. But if you look in there, it's not horribly bad. It's in pretty good shape for something that was in the 50s. So I thought it was intriguing. He had a couple of guns there that I could have bought that were modern. I believe he had a Car 380 that came with a couple extra magazines, some SIG firearms, but I'm really adamant about buying surplus guns at this point because they're so hard to get. They hold their value and they critique a good story. Again, this one was used in the Italian Navy, so that's pretty cool. It's got some lineage back to the gateway to the modern day Berettas. It is a single action pistol, like I said. The pros and cons are, like, this is a steel frame, and from some of the research that I've gathered, that they used to make these in an aluminum frame, but the frames would crack on them, so they went to making it an all steel firearm. So that's pretty good. Chris has got a video up on his channel where he goes real deep into the knowledge of these old firearms, and I encourage you to go watch those videos, because these guns, they come up every once in a while, and it's just cool to have. It's nostalgic. I mean, this is the first Beretta I've ever owned. I guess you'd call it the poor man's Beretta, but I thought it was really cool. There's not much to these guns, I will say that. The grips are less than to be desired in modern day standards. The sights, if you can see down there, there's not much there, folks. These sights are pretty beat up, and if you look closely, they're not, you can't adjust those sights, so it is what it is. You're gonna have to they're milled into the slide, so you know you're gonna have to adjust for what it is. Again, this is an old gun. I love these old guns. I think they give you an insight on what people used back in the day, what they had to deal with, things of that nature, and where these guns were thought up. I think that's so interesting, of where these guns are thought up, put into production, and what you see today of where they were then. So, I mean, that's so interesting to me to see how guns develop over the years and the centuries of firearms. A lot of people don't understand that, especially on the other side of firearms in general. I think it's interesting to see where firearms come from, how they're made, their manufacturers, throughout the years and decades that the guns have been around. Again, this is only an 8-round magazine. I've already looked online for extra magazines, and that's no bueno. But there is that Egyptian Helwan, I believe that's what it's called. It looks, I swear, I've seen pictures of it. It looks exactly like this gun. Those magazines, I think, are compatible with this gun. So if you come across them at a gun show, if we ever get back to socializing in large numbers, I'm going to definitely look for this, for the magazines for this gun and the magazines for my Makarov. Surplus stuff usually at gun shows is readily available, but with everything that's gone on in society right now in 2020, I see gun shows being maybe a little thin. They've been thin over the course of the last 8 or 9 years at times, when certain things come up, whether it be politicians, legislation, things of that nature. But now I see in 2020 that guns are really hard to get. They're not readily available at times, especially surplus stuff and parts for ARs. I mean, a lot of stuff is getting kind of ridiculous at this point to find. So if you find these old guns, I highly suggest you pick them up. Not only does that make a good conversation piece, this would probably make a pretty good range gun. Now, I haven't shot it yet and checked functionality, I should say, of the firearm, but it will be put into service at the range soon. This is your takedown lever here. You're going to have to match it up with this little cutout in the slide, and I'll do a video on the disassembly of this firearm, and then we'll give a look at that lock breech barrel. Again, a lot of this stuff was taken from the Walther P38. Back in those times, everybody was copying each other, sort of like what you see now with SIG 365, the Hellcat, Beretta, and Taurus. So companies have been doing this for quite some time, copying each other's designs and whatnot. You had Glock and then the SD9VE. So this stuff is common in gun culture to see. But I think this gun is beautiful to me. I just think it's a good piece of history. It's gonna hold its value for surplus, since surplus is so hard to get a hold of. Now, when I was in Madison on vacation, I did walk in the place where I found that Makarov, and they had quite a bit of surplus. There wasn't a ton of it, but it was surplus that reminded me 3 years ago. Where you could find your Mosins, your SKSs, things of that nature. And it kind of took me back to that time, and that's why I bought that Makarov, because you don't know when this stuff is going to come back. Importing of firearms has taken a hit here lately. There's not as much good imported stuff nowadays than you'd say 10 years ago. So I think these guns, they hold something to me, which is a conversation piece, a glimpse into the past to where we are now in the future. And of course, it's my first Beretta I could own. We'll check out the trigger pull on here. It does not have a magazine disconnect. And we'll check that trigger pull out real quick. So it's kind of long. We'll check the reset. So the reset's not horrible, but it's not great. Again, here so I mean, this gun's gonna need to be worked on. It's gonna need to be cleaned. I just thought it was cool because of the cross bolt safety. Again, to put the safety on, you have to cock the hammer back, and then it'll go in there. I don't know if you'll be able to see it on the other side, but there's the little red means dead line on there. It's really hard to see. I'm gonna have to clean it up, but it is a pretty gnarly gun. I haven't really heard of these guns per se, but I mean, to tell you the truth, when these things come around, again, you should pick them up. You should get something surplusy, and you know it helps start a conversation of especially of new gun owners, and start get them into the frame of mind of guns have been around for a long time. They've been a part of American culture since we've all read those history books. So again, it gives us another insight on helping, you know, the first-time gun owners and the people that get really interested into firearms after they purchase their first couple. So I think that is a bonus in bringing people into the gun culture. So again, if we can get a look at that, the little bit of the wording that you can see, this was out of the last couple of them when I was at Chris's shop that I saw. This was one of the better ones that you could actually read what was inscribed on the gun. Again, I seen one that was pretty bad. Hopefully somebody will go in there and buy it and just you know, enjoy these old guns. Again, it's only an 8-round mag, and you can carry with one in the hole. And then again, you have your cross bolt safety. There is some, I would call, grip. I don't even know what you would call that. It's poor. It's been used, so it's pretty slick. I don't know if they make any kind of aftermarket grips for a surplus gun of this magnitude. But I'm gonna look around. Maybe I will find something, or a little bit of a maybe some surplus grips to go to boot with this gun that I could add on there to make it look a little bit more presentable. But to me, I like these old guns. I think they're pretty gnarly. You don't see them all the time, and when they do come around and you don't pick them up, you know, they dry up, and then you don't see them for quite some time after that. So this is my other little, I guess, vacation gun shop tour. which is the Beretta model 1951. Again, it's chambered in 9mm. It's a single action pistol, but it's something you don't see every day. So hope you enjoyed this video and you've learned a little bit about this gun. If they ever do come up in your area and you see them at your gun shop, if you come across this video, you'll know what you're kind of dealing with on a certain type of level. Again, Chris has another video that really goes into the history of this firearm, and I encourage you to go over there and subscribe to his channel. Go check out his videos. He makes some pretty good stuff. He's an FFL, so he'll probably answer some of those questions for you as well. So he's a diverse kind of guy, and I appreciate all the knowledge that I gained from being down there in his shop and bringing home a nice little gem. So with all that being said, I'd like to thank my old and my new subscribers, just the people that zip through. I greatly appreciate it. Like, comment, subscribe, share your favorite gun content all over the internet. And like always, guys, we'll catch you on the next one.